Hello friends and welcome back. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans, and for all you folks that might have stumbled across our channel for the first time, welcome. As you're about to see, all we do is interesting and awesome around here. But for those of you that have been a part of our community for a while, you might recall that I was really wanting to take a trip out to San Diego a few months back. It looked really cool, there was tons of stuff to see, but 2020 had somehow managed to glitch itself out while I was doing my test flights, and I could only get a few miles from any of the airports before the sim was crashing, so we had to shelve it. I was hoping it'd be better in 2024, and it is. Not absolutely perfect, not the best of the best cities, but it looks really good, and at least as good as it did in 2020. But not only that, I have got some add-ons made specifically for 2024 now, or maybe have been modified up from 2020 to 2024. Two of them actually have been made for 2024. I'll tell you about those as we get going along. And I've also got some 2020 add-ons that I threw in here just for the heck of it from Freaky D to see if they would work. And because he told me that some of his did work, and these seem to be working flawlessly. So as always, all those will be linked in the video description. And the plane I selected for today's trip is the Super Decathlon, which we took not too long ago, but since we can't use the avionics in most of the planes yet, including this one, the flight plan wouldn't even load into this one. We're just going to take it again because it's hand flyable and fun. So for this one, when I tried to load it in, let me get it started real quick, and I'll tell you what was going on with that. Okay, those guys, get the pump on for a moment, crack the throttle just a hair, and fire it up. And the other, there we go. So with this one, a lot of the planes, when I'm putting my flight plans in, our flight plans in, it will just go from point A to point B, no matter how I drew it out, no matter what it looks like in the EFB. It could look perfect in the EFB. I can open the EFB in the sim once I'm actually sitting on the runway. The map still looks perfect in the avionics, just point A to point B. With this one, as you're going to see, absolutely nothing. And Asobo said they're aware of it, they're working on it, so put it on your Christmas list for next year maybe. It'll be fixed. But despite all that, we're still in here. This stuff looks good enough to me that whatever, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. Everything is moving towards 2024. I still love 2020, but everything's moving in that direction. 2020 is just going to stay as it is. 2024 is going to keep getting better, so this is where we're going to be from here on out. Okay, let's look at the map real quick just so you can see where we are and where we're going. So here we are in Southern California, San Diego. There's the Baja Peninsula down there, and you can see we got a lot of bookmarks out here. So our flight plan, which for some reason is not showing the flight plan, let me just bring that back in real quick. I don't know why it's not showing up. There it is going to be a big spaghetti bowl. We're going to be leaving from Miramar Marine Corps Air Station up here, taking off this way, heading down towards the coast. Cruise around the parks, the downtown area, check out the stadium, check out some universities up there, check out the port and the military base down here, which is absolutely awesome. And then come down by Point Loma down here, and then land at North Island, which is another military installation there. And the whole trip, it looks like was... Where'd that go? I think it's like 30 miles, not very long. And this plane's not real fast, but it'll be just the perfect speed for this. And as always, this flight plan will be included in our video description, even if you can't load it into your avionics. If you just want to track it in real time in Little Nav Map, you'll be able to do that. Just download that link and then open it in Little Nav Map. If you don't know how to do that, I do have a tutorial that talks about how to use all that stuff, how to bring it in, how to set it up, and all that. And eventually, when the sim starts working, that'll work too. Okay, let me zoom back in because this is a pretty big airport. Look at all those fighters over there. Awesome. And I got to taxi down to the runway just a little bit here. So let me just zoom in to see where we're going. Okay, parking brake off. Go ahead and step on these brakes. And let's get moving. This thing has no flaps. I don't know if you saw our last flight in here, but it has no flaps. And it's not really tough to handle or land despite that, which is cool. So the only issues that we're going to have out here are some blob trees, really. I think everything else looks pretty good, really good. The natural landscape looks good. Okay, the taxiway's over here, and then I'm just going to use our Limburg reference to try to find the line once we get over here. And even though there's planes all over the place, in 2020 it was stuttering so bad because of all the static planes out here. I don't have any turned on. This will come by default. It was really, really rough. And then when I did get up again, it was crashing to desktop. But it's good now. I've got the graphics probably set to medium, train level of detail around 200, everything else at ultra. One of the add-ons I installed made for 2024 was a new birds pack. And before, when I was getting them, I had to get like the Northeast US, Southeast US, all the different regions. Now there's just one for all of the US, and there are way, way more birds, and I think they look a lot more lifelike too. And I think it was like $8. And I got it at Sim Market, so I'll link that in the video description. And then I've got the Modern Cities pack from Samscene, which includes San Diego and a few others. And to be honest with you, I really couldn't tell what it touched up, which is kind of the point, I guess, because you don't want stuff that just really sticks out as being modded. So maybe the Midway, the aircraft carrier down there, but Freaky D did the whole port. That's one of his flagship mods, and it looks fantastic. Even with the Samsung pack in there, there were still trees growing out of a lot of the boats, so Freaky D's mod will take care of that. And also, he did Qualcomm Stadium, which is no longer there. But it looks better too, because there was a bunch of trees growing out of that. And then I got another freeware for the tower at SeaWorld, which we'll check out, because it's just a big spike if you don't put that in. And I feel like there was something else in there too, which right now I just can't recall. So the two paywares are the birds and then the Samsung pack. But even without any of it, aside from trees growing where they shouldn't and a couple of structural spikes and the blob trees, it looks pretty good. And this area has just got so much to talk about. A really cool area to fly over, so we're going to do it now because it's working. Well, they don't have much variety for their planes, do they? But that's fine. So just a quick disclaimer for any of the newcomers on our channel, just so you know what to expect. I have never been out to San Diego in person, and I'm most certainly not an expert on any of the landmarks we'll be seeing on this trip. Like virtually all the tours on our channel, everything I'm about to tell you has been gleaned from about a night's worth of research on the internet. So that means there is a very good chance I will get some of this wrong, and an even better chance I will mispronounce a few things. So I'll ask for your forgiveness in advance, and as always, invite anyone who would like to offer more details to feel free to leave us a polite comment. We're going to stop real quick right here, just check the barrow, and get our landing lights on, and we'll get moving again. And I know this is going to come as a shock to some folks, but this is not a real plane. We are not flying over a real city. This is a simulator, and I'm going to break all kinds of aviation and piloting rules as we go along. If you prefer to do things by the book, have at it. The point of this channel is just to show you some incredible places to explore in the sim. How you choose to do that is entirely up to you. Someone was commenting on my very unsafe mountain crossing on that recent Alps trip, and I pointed out the reality that seeing the castles is much easier from 1,500 feet than 4,000 feet. So I always try to find a good altitude to see everything well enough to actually identify what it is without being too ridiculously low. Okay, thankfully this is a really big, wide runway because this is a tail dragger, and without any flaps, you just kind of get up to take flight speed, and it's off. Boy, and there was a little bit of a crosswind on my last trip, and it nearly flipped this thing over. Let's see how we do this time. So this airport we're departing from, in case you couldn't tell by all the stuff on the ground, is Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. It is currently home to the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, and used to be the location of the U.S. Navy Fighter Weapons School, which is where they did the real-life Top Gun training. Okay, we got up. But they moved that thing out to Reno in 1996. Where they do all that, so I'm not sure what they're doing with these planes now. Probably still doing some fighter training stuff. After the Civil War, the land where the base sits today was sold to a newspaper tycoon from back east who made it a giant cattle ranch, and was the first to call it Miramar, which means view of the sea, and it certainly has that, as you'll see in just a moment. Then the Army bought it up during World War I and used it to train infantry headed over to the front in Europe. And after the war, the base was closed down and most of the buildings demolished, but the big open area made a great spot for a guy named Charles Lindbergh to practice takeoffs and landings in his fancy new plane without any forward-facing windows, which was also built right here in San Diego, as a matter of fact, at the Ryan Airlines factory. But premonitions of the U.S. having to get involved in World War II brought new life to the base as they opened it back up to train crews for the also locally built Consolidated Privateer Bomber, which looks very much like the front of a Liberator glued to the back of a B-17. We're still getting some stuttering because we're close to the airport here, but the natural landscape looks pretty good down under the trees there, where there aren't any trees. Once we get further from the airport, the performance will probably get a little bit better. That looks fantastic. But things really got ramped up again during the Vietnam War once the Navy decided to make it the location of what would become the coolest fighter pilot school in the world. That hill up there directly in front of us, just a little bit to the left center, is Mount Soledad, home to not only one of the best views in the area, but also a beautiful Veterans Memorial, which appears to be very unique as far as things like that go. If you were to visit it on the ground, you'd find over 5,000 black granite plaques that aren't just the names of people like most memorials, but pictures and details about each of the folks that are on there, which is awesome. And it's not just for one war either. They've got people from recent times all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And the first time I flew over this, I had trouble spotting it. So you see that open green area there? Right on the other side of it, you'll see some radio masts. I thought that's where it was supposed to be, but it's a little bit more on this side of it. I'll show you a good way to find it once we get up there to check it out. UC San Diego is over there to our right. I'm going to mention that later, so I'm just telling you where it is now. Not much to see, and it's a little bit off the beaten path, but that's where that is over there. Nice view of the water, I'm sure, but it's not really up on a hill. I don't know if they can see the water from the campus. Alright, you can see the radio mast there on top of that hill. We're going to circle around and use that to find the Veterans Memorial. And in the middle of the Veterans thing, they got a big, huge white cross. And in the sim, unfortunately, it's a big tree. At least there's something there, but you'll be able to see the stuff on the bottom of it. These houses look fantastic. Look at that. And something about the more detailed trees is just adding another layer of realism to all this for me. I'm liking that a lot. We won't see really any structural details of it. I'm looking for a pier sticking out in the water. And if you follow that back towards the coast once we see it, it's going to point roughly at the location of the Birch Aquarium. That was originally a privately owned research facility established in 1903 in the boathouse of a local hotel. And after hopping around a few times, it landed at the current spot in 1992. Alright, there's the pier. And I'm pretty sure this is affiliated with the university today. Okay, so see that hill there on that cliff kind of overlooking it? That open spot in the middle of it? That's where the Birch Aquarium is. Now let's see if we can find this memorial. Alright, you see the radio masts there. Wow, this looks fantastic out here. It really looks good. Definitely better than 2020 as far as I can recall. And look at the texturing on that open hill there. And the memorial is that open spot right on the top of the hill. And you're going to see as we get closer that there is a tree right in the center of it. And if you look at the bottom, if you get a really big screen, you'll be able to see all these circular things going around it. That's where all the plaques are, with all the names and everything on them. And I found a little local news clip of some people talking about it, and they said they're adding space for 2,000 more names to the 5,000 already down there right now. And I kind of started wondering how you get on that list, because they didn't talk about that. But if it's all filled up, and they have people from the really recent battles over in the Middle East too, so I don't know, they've been adding people to it. I don't know if they take someone off or if it just recently filled up. We're going to see a wild-looking inlet up here to our left. You can kind of start to see it now over there, that open waterway coming in from the coast. That's called Mission Bay. And you probably won't be shocked to hear that that is not a natural formation. From the 1940s to the 60s, they developed a bunch of marshy swampland into what would become the largest man-made aquatic recreational park in the country. And they got all kinds of amazing things you can do down there. Oh, is that a bird up ahead of us there? Maybe not. We're going to see a lot of birds on this, and they built them in like multiple layers. Oh, there's one. See in the top right? There's going to be lots of seagulls. They said they added a bunch of different species at different elevations. Look at them. There's a couple of them up there. And they're big, too. Maybe they're California condors. But we're going to see tons of seagulls. So there's a spot up here that I just found on the satellite map before I took this trip. It's a little amusement park down here, and I put a bookmark on it because I want to see if we can spot it. It's going to be right along the coast. So that was all just swampland before. And probably pretty nasty. And I guess they had to divert the San Diego River because they were afraid it would keep dumping silt in there. We'll see the San Diego River. It's got some dikes around it once we get up there. But this amusement park is called Belmont Park. And it's older than Mission Bay itself, so it's been out here since before they built all that stuff up back there behind it. They built it in 1925, and they still have a wooden roller coaster also built in 1925 called the Giant Dipper, which apparently has a good bit of acclaim amongst the locals who are smart enough to not compete with all the tourists over at SeaWorld, which is what we'll be seeing right across the channel here. Okay, so if we can see it, see that little Y-shaped island formation there that's coming down towards the coast? It should be right at the conjunction of those two little clumps of land right along the water, if we can see it. So that white building there that looks like a shed is part of it, probably. Oh, yep. If you got a big screen, you can see the roller coaster right behind that. It looks like it's filled in underneath, though. That's it. That's the Giant Dipper. Awesome. And if you follow that road back there, it runs just to this side of SeaWorld. And as we get closer, you'll see the tower sticking up, which again is one of the add-ons. If you don't put that in, it'll just be a big spike where the tower should be. But the iconic aquarium theme park combo was opened out here in 1964, making it the first of the franchise to be built in the U.S. And I only say the U.S. because you might recall we saw one out in Australia by the Gold Coast that is not affiliated with these guys. And I think that one might be. No, that was opened in the 70s or 80s maybe, the one in Australia. Look at the seagulls down there. See them? This SeaWorld was the brainchild of 4 UCLA alumni who originally wanted to build an underwater restaurant down there. But fortunately, that idea didn't hold water, pun intended. So they scaled things up a bit and created this place. You can see the tower down there. Look at all those seagulls. Awesome. Oh, there's some watery bridges too. That Samsung pack was supposed to fix that. Don't know what happened with that. And there's the San Diego River running through that series of dikes. See that circular thing there? I don't know what that is. And even when I looked at the satellite map, I couldn't really tell. I thought it might be a resort, but I'm thinking it might be apartment complexes or condos. It's definitely unique looking. If you're from the area, let us know. So to the right of the little corridor where the river is, you can see that little arena over there. That's called Pechanga Arena. And that was built just 2 years after SeaWorld in 1966. And is currently home to the San Diego Gulls minor league hockey team, which I have to imagine in a place like San Diego is probably as popular as my local minor league hockey team here in Jacksonville, which is not very popular. And at that elbow right up there ahead where the two highways come together, on this side of it, on the other side of the highway, you can see that green hill coming up. That is called Presidio Park, and that's the location of the original mission out here, which also makes it the site of the first European settlement on the West Coast. And that happened in 1769, which isn't really all that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And you see that open area at the foot of the hill, looks like a sandlot or something. Just to the right of that is an area called Old Town, which is where everyone moved in the 1820s when they got tired of climbing up and down the hill to the original settlement. And that area is the birthplace of what would become the city of San Diego. Okay, so we're going to head upriver to check out the big stadium, but we're going to travel just a little bit further to the east first so I can show you the campus of San Diego State, which I think looks pretty good here in the sim. Look at that airport down there. That looks fantastic. What a cool city. I've got to come out here sometime. Everyone who's ever been here or has lived here that I've known says it's just absolutely awesome. So on the way up here, I'll share a few fun facts about the city. If you like bird watching, well, you'll find this place is about as foul as it gets. It's believed to be home to the most bird species in the country at around 520. I think we're going to see about a dozen of them on this trip with that add-on pack. And up at UC San Diego, which is the one that was north of the airport, that I said was off to the right side of the plane, as we were coming down towards the coast, their main library is named after Theodore Seuss Geisel, more commonly known as Dr. Seuss. And inside it they have the largest collection of Seuss stuff in the world, totaling over 8,500 items. But they said a lot of it is in very poor condition and can only be viewed by special permission. Maybe because it's got crayon marks and beefaroni sauce all over everything, which is what all my Dr. Seuss books look like. Look at those hills, that highway going down there. I feel like the roads look really good out here too. They look to be the right color. That's a very dense population of houses, isn't it? I wonder what the ritzy part of town is. Doesn't appear to be that area. But that's a nice spot. I doubt you can see anything from up there, though, because there's houses all around you. There's another bird zipping by. Seuss wasn't native to this area, by the way. He was born in Massachusetts. I had to look into that. I didn't think he was from down here, but he was a magazine illustrator for a while, and then was working for the U.S. Army illustrating things during World War II. And after the war, he moved out here and stayed until he died in 1991. Man, that looks realistic. That looks so good. Look at these mountains up here. What a view. San Diego produces the most avocados in the U.S., and it also houses the world's largest model railroad display and their very own museum dedicated to the hobby, with a bunch of other museums we'll see in just a little bit. Boy, that is some dense population down there. The cool thing about this area, being so close to the coast and having mountains, kind of reminds me of Connecticut. We certainly don't have that here in Jacksonville. No mountains anywhere. A few famous people from San Diego: actors Cameron Diaz, Ted Danson, Gregory Peck, and my favorite, Bobby Lee, all from San Diego. And recording artist Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam fame, and the guys from Blink-182, along with RuPaul, though I hesitate to even lump that guy in with the others. And other than Dr. Seuss, one of the coolest people to ever live, Tony Hawk, was born in San Diego on May 12th of 1968. So we'll be cruising over the San Diego State campus in just a minute. Go Aztecs. And that place was founded in 1897, making it the first college in the area. And it's a public school with a current enrollment of around 38,000 students. I think they got a couple of campuses around town, maybe more than a couple. And the campus is up here on top of a hill. It looks really good. All right, there's their athletic fields coming into view there, and we're going to circle around and take a look at the stadium and head back towards the coast. We're still getting a little bit of stuttering, aren't we? And I wasn't getting any before. There's more birds, which I think I can probably blame on the streaming, because it was, once we got away from that main airport, it was just buttery smooth. Look how good this looks. This whole view is amazing. Look at this. This isn't the live weather, by the way. The clouds right now, the real clouds, looked amazing, but they were really low. Would have been a problem for the trip. So I just set on the few clouds. That is beautiful. Really gorgeous. Man, and it's so detailed. I'm wondering if that might have been part of that SAM scene pack. Look how detailed those buildings are. Baseball field looks great. Pool looks good. All of it is fantastic. Look at these roads as we come around here. They do look really, really nice. And other than those watery bridges back there... Oh, that's the other thing I got. I got a boats pack for out here. I noticed down by the harbor, a lot of the docks and piers were sunk, and a lot of the marinas were sunk, so it was like $6 on Sim Market, so I picked that up. We'll see once we come around if we can see any boats that look any better. This big stadium we're about to see is no longer here in real life, but it is here by default in the sim, and it doesn't look all that great. Thankfully, our man Freaky D has made a great add-on for us, which I'll link in the video description. Here it is just coming into view on our left. The last iconic name it carried was Qualcomm Stadium, but was switched to a local credit union's name in the last few years. I don't even remember what the name of that place was. It first opened in 1967 as San Diego Stadium, then Jack Murphy before Qualcomm bought the rights in 1997. And it used to be the home of both the Chargers, who are now up in LA at the massive SoFi Stadium that we saw on one of our LA helicopter tours, and also the Padres played here before they moved down to the park that we're going to see in a few minutes down by the water. But they tore the last bits of this place down in 2021, replacing it with Snapdragon Stadium, which opened up in 2022. So I'm guessing some of the rubble from that place was still there if they opened the other place just a year later. And the new stadium is just on the other side. It's really pretty much where the parking lot is on the other side of it now. And that new place is now the home field of the Aztecs from San Diego State. So the original one, if you're flying out here without the add-on, which you should definitely put in because it's free. Thank you, Freaky D. The footprint's about right. Just doesn't look that great. There's trees growing out all over the bleachers. And I feel like the parking lot looks better here too. You can actually see all the cars down there. They were all flat before. That looks great. And this is one of the 2020 mods that I just dropped in here. And as you can see, working totally fine. So if you guys experiment with any 2020 stuff that is working just fine in 2024 from any of your favorite places, let me know. Because I'll throw them in here. We'll take a trip out there if it's a spot we haven't been to before. But I bet a lot of that stuff is probably working just fine. As we head back down to San Diego Bay to see all the big ships out there, we're going to fly past Balboa Park up here to our left. And that whole area has been a favorite recreational location since the earliest days of the city for all the locals, being mostly just open land until the World's Fair came to town in 1915. With a population of just 40,000 at the time, it would become the smallest town ever to host the event. And the theme was human progress, as it coincided with the opening of the Panama Canal. I think they called it the Panama California Expo. And this, by the way, was the first stop up along the coast of North America from the Panama Canal, so maybe that's why they brought it out here. But a lot of the buildings from that big expo are still standing and part of the park today, and they've got all kinds of neat stuff down there. Their big zoo, all sorts of museums, and man, that San Diego Zoo, talk about iconic. But several museums, including their big Air and Space Museum, which just looks amazing. I checked out their website. Some of their collections are pretty impressive. But they had a big fire at that place in 1978 that burned the entire building to the ground, including everything inside of it. But luckily it doesn't sound like they lost anything too significant. Except the original Wee-Bee from Beecraft, the world's smallest aircraft when it was built in 1948. I saw a picture of that thing flying around in the air. The pilot had to lay down across the top of the fuselage, just totally exposed. Someone should make that thing for the sim. I bet it'd be a lot of fun to fly that and do some sightseeing. More birds. They're all over the place. Okay, that gray area there to the left on this side of that big open field is the parking lot for the zoo. And again, like usual, a lot of trees, so it's going to be really tough to see. And the zoo kind of stretches down towards the water from there on this side of it, and then on the other side of that parking lot. And then just on the other side of all that is where all the museums are. So this whole area was where that big expo was. And one of the websites I was at said this is the largest urban park in the world. It's not even close. I don't know what they were talking about. And the Air and Space Museum, see where those two roads come together, kind of like a T? It's just on the other side, that circular white top building, that's the Air and Space Museum. And I found some websites that were, when I was looking for the fun facts, one of them, which was a really nicely done website, at least half the stuff on there was inaccurate at best. Some of it was completely false. So I don't know why someone would spend the time to make a website like that. Maybe the city of San Diego paid them, the tourism department. And there's the USS Midway right down there along the water. And man, look at that. Those piers are sunk in the water. But at least we got the seagulls. They're completely sunk. That first one closest to us, which you can just see under the water there, that's their big cruise ship terminal. But there's the old Midway. She was commissioned 8 days after World War II ended, but still managed to sail for 47 years, seeing action in Vietnam and becoming the flagship during the first Gulf War. I didn't read anything about it in the Korean War, though, interestingly. And I wonder what that thing is on this side of it. Maybe their parking area. Alright, well, there's some boats. They're kind of popping in, though. Yeah, well, I think I'm more impressed by the birds. Well, those were all underwater before as well, so I guess it's nice to at least see them. But that Midway was also the world's largest warship when it was launched, and the first carrier that was too fat to squeeze through the Panama Canal, speaking of that thing. And that huge, big, long building right along the water down there to the left with all the pointy things on top of it is their big convention center. And right across Harbor Drive, which is that road on the other side of it, is Petco Park, which is now home of the Padres since it opened in 2004. It looks great also. You know, just looking at the city, I really can't tell. It looked pretty good without the Samsung pack. I really can't tell what they put in here. But we're not really looking for specific buildings. But we got 2 other cities with it too. Neither of which I think we've flown over yet. So we'll check them out. Good reason to do it. Up next is Naval Base San Diego, home of the U.S. Pacific Fleet and the world's 2nd largest surface ship base. We saw the largest one on our Norfolk tour, by the way, which was a really neat trip if you haven't seen that. Richmond to Norfolk. This place got started as a repair base in the 1920s after the government purchased the area from a bunch of companies that built concrete ships. And no, those weren't concrete pouring ships. They actually made the hulls out of reinforced concrete. I didn't know anything like that ever existed, but I bet they were a lot easier to build than steel-hulled ships, and way easier than wooden hulls. And this is all Freaky D's modded up stuff here. All these ships before had trees growing out of them. I mean, you could see them, they were out of the water, but trees growing out of ships, not cool. Look at that dry dock there with a big hull in it. This looks fantastic. Once again, awesome job, Freaky D. Look at that. What is that, a hospital ship or something down there? They got all kinds of stuff. Everything's out of the water. But apparently the new facility wasn't all that great at repairing anything. In 1924, they decommissioned 77 ships down there. I think they only commissioned 2 or 3 of them. Then World War II rolled around, and they added a bunch of training schools and really stepped up their fix-it game. Between 1943 and 45, they restored more than 5,000 ships that were damaged in the Pacific Theater. And today it looks like they have mostly amphibious assault ships, destroyers, and close-to-shore support and threat deterrence vehicles. Those look like amphibious ships down there. Very nice. That area looks a little bit flat, but everything else looked cool. As we head back to the west, we'll cross over the 7-mile-long Silver Strand beaches, along which we will see the Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, the famed and feared location of the BUDS training facility for Navy SEALs. They also spent a few weeks out at San Clemente Island, which I did not realize, which is where they practice amphibious assaults. That's about 70 miles west from here. But they do Hell Week and all that down here. And I thought Hell Week was the last week. But it's not. That's what they use to filter out all the guys that aren't going to make the cut. Well, there's just a completely naked marina down there. But at least it's out of the water. And you see that thing on the other side of the street there? That kind of looks like an old fort? I was hoping that's what that was, but it's not. It's a dog park or something. I found it on the Google Maps. Not a coastal battery, unfortunately. It looks like we got a little map seam there, doesn't it? So this road here runs right through the middle of the SEALs training facility. And I'm kind of wondering, back when I was a kid, of course I got a lot of spring training camps down here in Florida. We used to go down and see the Yankees all the time. And I'd go down there and smash my face up against the fence and try to get autographs, see if I could get any of the guys to talk to me. I wonder if you can do the same thing down here. I mean, the road runs right next to it. See all the guys get yelled at, sprayed with fire hoses, thrown up all over the place. I bet you could. And if you can, I would definitely be doing it. That'd be pretty cool, I think. Fun day trip. So right down there to the right of those buildings, right along the beach, you can barely make out the faint outline of a square, and that is the fenced-in obstacle course area, I guess, for the SEALs. And if you get even closer, you can see they do have some stuff sticking up. There's their pool over there on the other side of the street. This looks amazing. Just the shadowing under that bridge is the only thing distracting me at all. I'm coming over this way a bit because I want to see if I can find some writing that's down here on the beach. And it's huge. It says Coronado Beach, CA, like California. We're not quite there yet. And I don't know if it's... I can't tell what it's made of. I don't know if it's bushes or rocks they carved up or rocks they put down here. There it is right there. There's Coronado. And then you can just see about half of beach. On the satellite image, you can see it perfectly, so I don't know if maybe some sand blew over it or what. But that's it. And there's North Island Naval Air Station. That's our destination. We're going to come in on that runway right there to the right, facing the other direction. We're going to come in from the west. So a few quick announcements while we head over to Point Loma. As always, this flight plan, all the add-ons we used in this flight and our bookmark file will be linked in the video description, so you can fly it just like we did if you want to. Again, you'll at least be able to track it in real time on little nav map. So far, only the 172 and the Caravan will load it up properly. I'm expecting that that's going to get fixed soon. I hope it happens sooner than later, although it has been fun hand-flying all these planes. This one's pretty easy to tame. And you can also hop on our Discord server, which will also be linked in the video description, and in there you can participate in our quarterly flight plan recommendation competition. We're almost done with this quarter. I'm waiting for one more flight that I want to upload, so we'll have 4 of them. And then once I have those, I'll link all of them in a post in our community page, and then we'll vote as a sim community. I'll put a poll up there, and the winner gets at least a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice, and I'm betting it's probably going to be $75 this time around. Trying to dish out all the money YouTube's paying me. I don't want to pay tax on that stuff. I got to give it away. So you guys pick yourself up something nice. The cliffs down here around this point just look fantastic. One of my favorite features of 2024. There's the sub base right down there. That's where they keep the subs. That thing's sticking out on this side of it. And most of this peninsula is Navy stuff. From about halfway up to all the way to down here, I think. But they got a big park right over here. The highest point of which is the Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo National Monument, commemorating that guy's arrival in 1542. Making him the first European to set foot on the western coast of the future United States. And the area surrounding that has had forts on it. Pretty much you can't see the monument. It's tucked down there amongst all that stuff, kind of coming down that winding path. But they've had forts down there on that high point pretty much since the Spanish built one up there in 1795. Becoming a coastal battery called Fort Rosecrans in 1898, which remained active until 1945. And if anything is left of that, I couldn't find it. And you know that I looked. And in just a moment, once we get past these roads here, we're going to see a big, open, really green area in the center of this peninsula. And that is the Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery. They said that was built on the former site of a big artillery battery they had, so maybe that's what happened. They just tore it all down. I looked all around it, couldn't see any kind. Look at all these seagulls. They're everywhere. Look at that. They're flying in formation. Ooh, those tanks look really nice. There's the cemetery. Very nice. And if you think that's a nice spot to plant your mortal remains, it definitely is. And you wouldn't be alone in that sentiment. It reached capacity in the 1960s. But I read they're still taking cremated remains, which is probably why their grass looks so good. Look at all these seagulls. That's one of those things that after a while you just kind of get used to it and don't think about it anymore. But then when it's not there, you wonder why the realism just got a little bit less. That's cool. All those cliffs look just perfect. So I think this is still Navy stuff up here, which I guess you can get a pass to drive through if you want to go down to that cemetery or the monument at the end. More seagulls. It's an endless string of seagulls. Whoa, those guys are doing some hard banking. We're going to turn onto final over the campus of Point Loma Nazarene University, which has an even better view than the cemetery. As the name implies, it is a Christian college that opened in 1902. And it should be coming up on the right here in just a minute. Yep, all this stuff. No stuttering out here anymore. I think we're far enough away from the airports. And you'll notice when we're coming into this airport, there are no static aircraft. It looks like just a huge asphalt area. Nothing down here at all. I don't know why they put so many of them in that place we left from, but I'm glad they did. We're getting a little bit of popping down there. We'll blame it on the seagulls. This campus here looks really cool, too. I'm not seeing any more blob trees anywhere. Well, there's a few that look a little geometric right in there by that little house. Boy, what a view that guy has. But look how good this campus looks. And there's something that looks like, see just on the other end of the field there, it looks like they got an amphitheater of some kind. I noticed that on my last flight. See that? It's kind of sunk down to the ground. We'll have to check that out on a little nav map at the end. And here come the fuel tanks on the right with Go Navy written on them. We'll see if we can spot them. So we're coming into NAS North Island, even though it's just barely not an island. It's connected by a little strip of land over to the Silver Strand area. And this place is where they dock all the carriers on the other side. We won't be able to see them if there's any out here. Currently they have 3 of them. Alright, see on the tanks to the right it says Go, and on the 4 bottom ones, I can't really see it from here, we're too low, but you can see them very well if you fly over it from the top. But this was officially commissioned as a Naval Air Station in 1917, and in August of 1963 was officially recognized as the birthplace of naval aviation. But they got started out here even earlier than that. The Navy's first flyer, Lieutenant Theodore Ellison, took off in 1911 under the tutelage of Glenn Curtis himself. And we saw where that guy was from on our Finger Lakes trip up in upstate New York. That was also an awesome flight. They were flying the Curtis Grass Cutter, which looked quite a bit like the Wright Flyer. And what an amazing name for a plane like that. Okay, I need to try to get down to 80. I'm sure we're probably going to do some hopping because this thing is super light. And we have no flaps, which you'd think it would make it just plant itself on the ground. Let's see if we can burn off the rest of this speed real quick. And man, I don't know what it was about that. Okay, come on. There we go. Well, at least we're on the runway. I'm just no good at tail draggers. Our last flight, the one out in South Australia, did not get very much fanfare, which was really disappointing because I liked that one a lot. I thought it was really cool. There's an awesome landmark out there. If you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. But I'm noticing that right now, I don't know if I mentioned that flight or not, there's an app I found that will show all of the Steam users of any game you want at any time. And it said for MSFS 2024, it's averaging like 4,000 people at any given time. And it was less than 25,000 on the day it launched. I thought it would be way, way higher than that. And the number just seems to keep getting smaller. But I'm not going anywhere. All you guys that are going to be hardcore simmers are going to ride it out with me. I'll be here. Even if we have one viewer, and it's me, I'm still going to be doing it. I'll be here waiting for you guys. I think we just probably park right over here. Since there's nothing anywhere around here but asphalt, we're just going to stop it, and then we'll take a look at the little nav map. That looks good enough for me. We'll just pull the mix out, and that should stop it. Okay, cool. Let's grab a little nav map here. Okay, so we will take the centering off, and I'm going to leave my flight plan up from at my tail. We actually followed that pretty close for not being on autopilot. Not too bad at all. Man, that was really close. I'm patting myself on the back right now. Okay, so up here we have the big Marine base, former home of the Top Gun program. And we came out here at Birch Aquarium. It's kind of funny because it's up on the hill and the angle that we were approaching it at, because the pier is obviously way down here, so it looked like it was much further to the north than it actually was. But this is it here, and it's really the only thing up on top of that hill. And it probably looks quite a bit like that if you flew right over the top of it. And as we come over here to Mount Soledad, I'll show you what it looks like in real life, if it'll depixelate. So this thing right here in the center is the cross where we saw the tree, and then all of these things here are the things that have the people's pictures all over them, which is really neat. Very cool area, and definitely in a nice spot. So then we came down to the coast towards Mission Bay, and there it is. And here's Belmont Park. Let's see if we can see the Giant Dipper. There it is. And they got some other smaller rides, but they're so small there's no way we could have seen those. But all throughout this thing, they got golf courses, running courses. They do boat races and stuff out here. You know, I feel like that should have been really done up with a lot of boats in it, and maybe it was. I just didn't take a look at it because I was too focused on SeaWorld as we were coming by. But that is a gigantic marina right there. Well, looks like they threw a little turf on the Mission Bay Park. Look at that. A lot of grass there, nothing but dirt there. Okay, so there's SeaWorld. The first one ever. Pretty neat. I bet they got some good roller coasters there. And they got all their pools and everything. I wonder how that compares size-wise to places like Orlando. There's that weird... I'm thinking that that's probably... It doesn't look like a resort because the roof is too filthy for that. I'm thinking an old condo or an apartment complex. Pacific Isle Clubhouse. If it is a resort, they need to pressure wash that roof. And then here's the Pechanga Arena. And then here's Presidio Park. So this was the original settlement right out here. And they probably picked it because it was close to the San Diego River and up on a hill. And then here's where Old Town is right now. Boy, that's a pretty small golf course, isn't it? What is that, like a par 3? Maybe 6 holes? Look at that. But here's Old Town. That's it. That's everything. That is the Old Town. And then we came up here to check out the university. Here's San Diego State, which looked just fantastic. I really like that quite a bit. That was neat, and it looked really good too. You know what? We cut that a little bit short because we kind of flew right over this way, but there was a lot more of that campus over here to the east. Very cool. All right, so this is interesting. As we zoom in, you will see the new stadium and the old stadium. So there's the old stadium. There's San Diego Stadium, and there's the new one. So that's Snapdragon now. That's what it looks like. And there's the old one. So unfortunately, I don't know. Well, I guess the sim, I don't know what the dates are for the stuff the sim was using as far as maps, but we got a nice big looking stadium. All right, and here's a couple other things I bookmarked as we were going through here in case you want to come check them out. So there is the zoo, which is nice. I bet that's an amazing trip to go down there. And all these museums, look at this. So you got the Photographic Arts, Fleet Space Theater, Natural History Museum, Waterfront Bowl, I wonder what that is. Art Institute, and Comic-Con Museum. Wow. I bet there's some cool folks hanging out in there. Automotive Museum, a puppet theater. Who didn't want to see that? And then the Air and Space Museum. I would love to check that out. And then here's the Midway. So that is a parking area down there next to it. All right, these things were totally sunk in the water. Good thing no cruise ships were there. But that was cool and looked really, really good. And then down here was the convention center. This looked fantastic, and so did Petco Park, which doesn't look great there. They're redoing the turf there, too, it looks like. Look at that. Look at all those people down there. I wonder what they got going on. Pretty big crowd. Something going on at Gallagher Square, too. Looks like everybody's trying to get into Petco Park, but they're all stuck in Gallagher Square. And in 2020, if you're going to fly this in 2020, there was also a mod that did the convention center, the park, and the street here. If you noticed all the spike trees that they had in there, that was supposed to clean all that stuff up as well. So here's the big Navy base, which really looked good. Great job again, Freaky D. They look good. Man, these ships are so wild looking. Look at how they have these points on them. Look at that. That is crazy. And then we came over here to this Silver Strand, and where you can do your buds training. That was really detailed too. You can see their little pull-up bars, chin-up bars, things to run and jump over, sand to eat. And then there's the pool. And then up here we have the big Coronado Beach, California sign. I wonder what that is. I wonder if they piled rocks up or if they like carved it out of some rocks or under the sand. If it is piled up rocks, they're pretty big. Maybe just bushes. But it's kind of disappearing. You really couldn't see this part of it in the sim here. And then we came down here to old Loma Point. And let's see if I got that right for the lighthouses. Well, there's not a marker on that one. Either of them, actually. Okay, so that was the old one, so we got that right. And then, yep, the Rodriguez Memorial is this thing right up here. Cabrillo ships. I wonder what that is. I need to come out here and check all this stuff out. There's the big cemetery, and then here's the sub base right here. And I didn't see any subs down there. Unless they got one in dry dock, which they might. You can kind of see one in there. They might have one in dry dock. Well, there's one right there, too. That's cool. At the November Pier. So again, I think all this stuff is Navy base. I guess you can get a pass to go through here if you want to see the cemetery and the monument down here. But again, couldn't see any artillery stations anywhere. Old batteries. None of them. And then as we came around the Nazarene University, which also looked amazing. Let's see if we can see that amphitheater. Yep, there it is. Greek amphitheater right there. That was cool. I didn't even notice that the first time. And then, of course, we got our Go Navy sign. Oh, look at all the filth around that. The shadows were kind of on it just like this, actually, so we couldn't see around the bottom, but I'm wondering if all that mildew was down there. That'd be cool. And then we came on in. Very cool trip. Hope you'll take it. If you're from San Diego and you need to correct me on anything, please feel free to do so. I'd like to get out here sometime. Everyone who has ever been out here or has lived out here said it is an absolutely amazing place. Just ask Dr. Seuss. He came out and never left. So that's it for this one, guys. Had an absolute blast as always, and I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.